Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this really pretty blanket. Now for this I use this Hedgerow Chunky by King Cole. This one is called Holly Berry. The number is 5842 for this one. Now this is a beautiful blanket. I did a chain of 79 for this blanket. Now the pattern in the blanket is just a one row repeat. It doesn't look like it. When I do the video showing you how to do this stitch, I'll use just a one colour, a solid colour, so you can see it. But as you can see here with this, you work the fan, the granny stitch fan, on top of each other. And I've got V stitches there on top of each other. Then you move over, you'll do your granny stitch fan, your V stitch fan. Now you can keep them all on top of each other for the whole pattern. But what I did, I'll go to the bottom of the blanket. I did 7 rows. I did 7 rows with the fans on top of each other. I did 7 rows. And then what I did, just to change it a little bit, I started putting the V-stitch in the middle of the fan, and then the fan and the V-stitch for the first sort of row. Then I done another 6 with fans on top of fans, the V-stitches on top of each other. I did 7 rows and then I changed it back, and it just gave it this little bit extra texture to it, rather than having straight lines all V-stitches and straight lines all of the fan. I swapped it after 7 rows. You don't need to do that. You can keep it all just the same, but it gives it a bit of a better texture. You can't see it so much in this variegated yarn, but it makes the variegated yarn with a lovely texture. It's nice and soft. It's a beautiful autumn colour as well for the autumn. Now around the edges, up the sides, I picked up 92 stitches evenly along here with a UK treble crochet. If you're in the USA, that's a double crochet. This whole blanket is made up of the odd, there's a chain in the V-stitch, but the fan and the V-stitches are made up of UK treble crochets. That's USA double crochets. Now down the long sides, I evenly picked up 92 stitches. In the corners, I put 2 stitches, 2 chain and 2 stitches. Then along the bottom, in the 2 chain space, I put 2 stitches. I put 1 in the middle of the fan, 2 stitches in the chain space, and 1 in the middle of the V-stitch, 2 in the chain. So what I eventually ended up with 80 stitches running along the bottom, and I ended up with 80 stitches along the top. So that's 76 stitches in the pattern, plus the 2 in the corner and the 2 at the other corner. That's 76, 77, 78, 79, 80. So that's what I did with that. The border itself is a front and back post treble. So once I got my line of trebles all the way around the blanket, I started doing a front post, a back post, a front post, you can see it here, and a back post all the way around. At the corners, in the same original corner at the beginning, I put 2 stitches, 2 chain and 2 stitches. I did 3 rows of front post and back post, front post and back post, front post and back post. I used 400 grams of the yarn. Now I was making a hat, so excuse this part here. Now these are 200-gram balls, and I used 2 of these. This is the Holly Berry again. I'm working. I was doing a hat and it came up really big, so I need to work on the hat that I was making to go with this. So I need to work on that. But it'll take 2 of these balls of yarn, 400 grams. Now if you use a thinner yarn, a double knitting yarn, You should still get about this size of blanket from 4 balls of yarn. You don't need to make it that big, just adjust it. So I'm going to show you how to do this. This was done in chunky, it's quite thick, but I'm going to show you how to do it in a double knitting, and I'm going to use just a one solid colour so you can see it clearly in the video. But you can use any yarn for this. Use the hook size on the label of the wool or the yarn that you've chosen. I'm going to use a thinner yarn to show you how to do this stitch. It is really easy. The stitch count is 8. I'm sure the stitch count is 8, but what you can do is you can just make yourself a big long chain to the size that you want, and you can follow along with what I'm going to do. So I'm going to make a chain. So I'll show you how to do it if you don't need a stitch count. Just make yourself the length of chain that you want. Either you can do this for pillowcases, you can do it for blankets, crib size, car seat size, bed size, any size. And what you're going to do is you're going to do a chain. Do it quite loose. You don't need it too tight. You don't want the bottom of your blanket tight. So just give your stitch a tiny little pull. So I'll do a sample. I'll show you how to do this. If you keep a decent sized tail, if you run out of stitches, you can add more with the tail. If you want to do a blanket the same size I did, I crocheted 79 chains. So I'm just quickly going to show you this. It is only a 1 row repeat. If you want it a certain size, then just chain and chain until, put it on your bed, put it on the cot, put it wherever you want it to see if it's big enough. And I'm going to show you how you can do this even without a stitch count. So for the blanket, one more time, I crocheted 79 chains. And if you want it bigger, you can add sets of 8 on top of that. You're going to go into the 4th stitch in the chain count, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yarn over and into that stitch. Now those chains there becomes your first treble crochet there. We're going to leave that one on its own there. So that's your treble crochet. Now these stitches, if you're in the UK, they're treble crochets. If you're in the USA, it's double crochets for you. So in that stitch I've got 1. I'm going to put 2 more. I'm going to make like a granny stitch fan. So we're going to put 3 in there. So we've got 1 already. That's 2. And 1 more is 3. So we've got our first fan here. A little bit fiddly. You've got your first fan and your end stitch. You're going to skip 2, 1, 2, and into the next stitch you're going to build a V stitch. So 1 treble crochet or double, whatever country you're in, chain 1 and 1 more in that stitch, and that's you made a V stitch. So what you've got is you've got your chain, that's your first treble on the end. You've got your first granny stitch or your fan. We'll just call it a fan now. Chain, skip 2 and do a V stitch. 1 stitch, 1 chain and 1 stitch. You're going to skip 2 stitches and build that little fan again. So 1 all into the same stitch. 1, 2 and 3. Skip 2 and do a V stitch in the next stitch. So that's 1 stitch, 1 chain and 1 stitch. Skip 2 and make a fan. 1, 2 and 3 all into the same stitch. skip 2 and do the V-stitch. So that's 1 stitch. It's a double if you're in the USA, a treble if you're in the UK. Chain 1 and 1 more into that same stitch. And you'll work your way along. Make sure it's a fan, skip 2, a V-stitch, skip 2, a fan, skip 2, a V-stitch. So we're on a V-stitch now. 1, chain 1, and 1 more for the V-stitch. And it's called a V-stitch because it looks like the letter V. And I'll show you what to do if you haven't got enough stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Now I need to skip 2 and do 1 treble crochet on the end, but I've only got 1 in my little sort of knot. So what you can do with your tail, put your hook through that knotted part of your very first stitch, and I'm going to create a couple of stitches. So I've got 1 there, so I've made 1 there, that's 2, that's my skip 2, and 1 more. And then I'm going to pull that through. So if you do a big long chain, at least that way you know that you can fix the end. So I want to finish on that, but I need to skip 2 and put 1 treble crochet in the last stitch. So skip 2 and put 1 treble crochet in that last stitch. You won't see any bumpy bits because you're going to put a border on. We're going to chain 2. So at the end of every row, you'll put 1 treble crochet in and you'll chain 2 in turn. So the chain 2, yarn over, pull through your stitch, make it a little bit bigger. So that's 1 and that's 2. And that gives you a nice neat edge. Don't do these stitches too tight. So what we're going to do now, it's super easy. We're going to build a fan in the fan and a V-stitch in the V-stitch. So you're going to go in to the middle of your fan, into that middle stitch. You've got 1, 2, 3 stitches. Go into your middle stitch and put 3 stitches in. 1, 2, and 3, and build that little granny stitch fan. Go into the middle of your V-stitch and you're going to put another V-stitch in there. So that's 1 chain and 1 more. So you're going, that's your fan, you're going into the middle stitch. So you're basically skipping 2 again. So you're going into the middle stitch and put your fan in. 1, 2, and 3. Skip over to the V-stitch and put a V-stitch. So that is your whole pattern. You're going from now on, you're going to put a V-stitch into each V-stitch and a fan into the middle stitch of the fan below it. So go, you're skipping 2 again and do your fan in the middle stitch. 1, 2, and 3. And you're skipping 2 again and you're going in there. It's easier just to put a fan in the middle stitch of that fan and a V-stitch inside this one. 1 chain, remember the 1 chain, and work your way along. So I'm going over to, I've got that chain that we started with, remember, and I've got my fan, so I'm going into the middle stitch in my fan, into that middle stitch, and put 3 in. 1, 2, and 3. And if you're in the USA, these are double crochets, and if you're in the UK, these are treble crochets. So go over, you've got 2 stitches here, so count, you should have 3, count, go into the top of that chain, not that stitch belongs to that fan, so count 1 and 2 and go in there and do 1 treble crochet. That's a double crochet if you're in the USA. Pull your stitch a little bit and do a chain of 2, 1 and 2. Do them quite slack, don't do them too tight. And again, what you're going to do is you'll build a fan on top of the fan, skip 2 and into the V-stitch you're going to put another V-stitch. So a fan into the middle stitch of that fan and 1 into the V-stitch, and you'll keep repeating that, and at the end it'll be 1 treble crochet into the top here of these 2 chains, chain 2, chain them loose, and then turn and keep working. Now what I did with my larger one, I worked 7 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Then what I did after 7 rows, you don't have to do this, but this is what I did just to change the pattern a little bit. I did 7 rows with the fans on top of each other. Then what I did, into the middle stitch of the fan, I put a V-stitch, chain 1 and 1 in there. Then into the V-stitch I put the fan. I put the fan into the V-stitch. 1, 2 and 3. So you can mix this around. You could even just change it after each row if you want, or you can do 2 rows of fans, 2 rows of V-stitch. Mix it up any way you want. With my one I did 7 rows with the fan first, then I done 7 rows with the V-stitch first, changed it back to the fan and done 7 rows with the fan first. So I've done another couple of rows, and it's a really pretty pattern, as you can see, in a solid colour, even in double knitting. Now I'm going to show you how I picked up the stitches to put the border on. I know you can't really see it with this variegated yarn, but it's a beautiful, look at that pattern, it's beautiful. Now like I said, you can continue and just keep the pattern as it is, or you can chop and change it. You can start with V-stitches and then fans and V-stitches and fans, and then alternate it whatever way you want. So to pick up the stitches across the top, the bottom and down the sides. Now down the sides you need to make sure you've got the same down this side as you do on this side. So I'm going to do a corner first here in this first stitch. So I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. So in to the corner stitch, that corner stitch, I'm going to put another one. So these are UK trebles, they're USA doubles. I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and into the same stitch put another 2 stitches, 1 and 2. So we've done our corner, and what we're going to do is I'm going to put 1 stitch into this long stitch here, 1 in here, and then 1 into that joint. There's a little joint there, put 1 in there. That's what I did for my big blanket. 1 into that space, and then 1 into the joint, and I work my way down, and 1 into the space. Just do it so it's nice and even. You've not got too many. It's not all wavy. If it goes all wavy, you've got too many. So I'm going to put 1 into the joint down here, and then in the corner, in this corner space, I'm going to put 2, 1, 2, put my 2 chain, 1, 2. I'm going to make a corner. Now you just imagine that's a bigger blanket, and put 2 in the corner, in there, and that gives me my corner. If you're doing a bigger blanket, make sure what you add in down the side you've got on the other side as well. So this is the bottom of the blanket, as you can see. So just imagine it's a big blanket. Now, into the cluster, into the middle of the cluster, push a hook through and do 1 stitch. Then in that 2 chain space, remember we skipped 2 in the foundation chain, put 2 in there. 1 and 2. Now in the V-stitch, put 1 in the middle of that V-stitch. So it's 2 into the chain spaces, 1 and 2, and 1 in between the fan. Just push it right through the middle of your fan, 2 into the space, into the chain space, and we should end up with the same amount of stitches as we did when we done the chain. So 1 into the V-stitch, 2 into the spaces, and 2 into that last chain space, 1 and 2. Then into the bottom of that stitch, you're going to build your corner. So into there, 2 stitches, 1 and 2, 2 chain, 1, 2, and 2 stitches. I'm just going to pull that tail down out of the way, 1 and 2 in that corner. Now up here, I'm going to count. Don't count the corner. I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the corner. So I need to work 6 stitches in along here. So I'm going to put 1 in there. That's 1. 1 in that joint. That's 2. 1 in the next space is 3. Then 1 in there is 4. 1 in that space is 5. And 1 in that space is 6. Then I'm at the corner. I'm going to build my corner in here. Put my corner in here. So 1 and 2. Chain 2, 1, 2. And put 2 in there. 1 and 2. So that's the corner made. Now we need to use that space, because down here it's a chain space, as you can see. You're going to put 2 in that space, 1 and 2. We need to make sure we've got the same amount of stitches as you have down here. So 1 into the middle stitch of your trebles. You're going to put 2 in between the stitches. This is the top. So 1 into the top of your fan. You're going to put 2 into the space in between, 1 and 2. 1 into the V-stitch. 2 into that space in between those groups, 1 and 2. And you should have the same amount running along the top as you have on the bottom. So there's your little sort of 3 there. So you're going to put 1 in the middle, 2 in between, 1 right through that middle stitch in the fan, and then into this space here you're going to put 2. Now you've got your corner in that stitch, but in that space put 2. So you'll have the same stitches on the top as the bottom. You're going to slip stitch to that chain of 3 that we started with. Then what you're going to do is we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now in the next stitch, that's going to work with that one there. So in this stitch, you're going to work around, go behind the post. I'll show you that again. You're going right through the back and scoop it through the front. And this is a front post treble crochet, or a front post double crochet if you're in the USA. So into the chain space, you're going to put 2 stitches, 1 and 2. That's UK trebles, USA doubles. Put 2 in there and chain 2. We're doing a corner, and 1 and 2. So around the next stitch, you're going to do a front post. And then you're going to do a back post, come through the back, like this. So your post of your stitch is on the back. Pull your yarn through and up. So that's a back post. The next one, you're going to do a front post, round the front. The next one, you're going to put your yarn over and come in from the back, in around the back. So the post of a stitch is on the back of your hook, and pull it up, and then a front, and then a back one, and then a front, all the way down your sides, around the back, and then a front, and then a back on that last stitch in the corner. So into the corner, 2 stitches, 1, 2, 2 chain, 1, 2, and 2 stitches. That's your corner made. So around this one, we're going to go around the front, and around the back of the next stitch, all the way down, and around the front. Work your way all the way around your blanket. You'll do that all the way around. When you get to the corner, 2 stitches, 2 chain and 2 stitches. Then work your front post, back post all the way up, 2 stitches, 2 chain and 2 stitches. Then work your front back all the way down. And when you get to here, you'll slip stitch to the top, chain 3, and you'll do your front post, back post, front post. 2 stitches, 2 chain, 2 stitches. Front post, back post, front post. Back post where there's a back post, front post where there's a front post. Back where there's a back, and at the front where there's a front. So when you're at the back, you'll just scoop it up and do like I done. And I did 3 rounds like that. And once you've done that, you'll get this. And that is how you make this hedgerow blanket. So thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Help me get up to 300,000 subscribers. The more subscribers I've got, then the more my channel's going to be seen. If you click on the bell icon, YouTube will tell you when I put up another tutorial. So until the next time, happy crafting, and I'll see you all again soon. Goodbye.